got an audience of 0. Oh no! Shoot. Well, maybe people will come back. I don't know. We'll find out. The hard part is I'm missing out on all the super chats everybody sent in, so I don't know what's going on. Hello again. I don't know what happened. The entire YouTube app just completely rebooted. Right in the middle of everybody's great chats. So I got to see if I can track them down here. But we're back to an audience of 3. So from 200, that ain't bad, right? Oh, don't worry. We're going to get caught up on everybody's super chat. I have a second phone, so we can... So I don't know. I don't know what happened. Yeah, exactly. Brickatech says YouTube rebooted itself. I'm going to scroll through the chats and then just the whole app just completely reboots. But I'm going to go into the YouTube Studio app and I'm going to find what you've sent me here and we're going to talk about it because I'm not going to let YouTube win. You know, I always would see these old people and they'd be like, oh, I just can't stand the technology. This would be like in the 1990s when like Windows 95 was a thing. And you have these teachers, you know, who are old because they were like 40. And they'd be like, oh, the computers and the printer doesn't work and I couldn't make my grades work and it's all so stupid. And I'm like, oh man, these old people are so dumb. They're so dumb. And now here I am. YouTube is stupid. It's not working. Okay. So if I go to my previous live stream, part 1, and I go to comments, and I go to from super thanks, so let's at least make sure that if you wrote a super thanks that you get acknowledged. I'm not a boomer, I'm a millennial. Well, welcome back. If you're rejoining at half the audience size of what we had before, I appreciate you following me back here. The YouTube app on my brand new used Galaxy S22 decided to reboot. So, the problem I'm running into is I go to say on my old stream, show me everybody who sent me a super chat. And it says, no comments found. So I'm not sure how to do that. Team iPhone, writes Tyler. I'm starting to wonder. Super chat. Super thanks. There's got to be some way to go back and see those comments. I will do so before the night is out. In the meantime, we have a fight breaking out between the iPhone people and the Android people. And normally I'd be a huge defender of Android. Normally. Boy, this is exciting. I will get, I promise, I will get to your super chats here because you deserve that. I'm flummoxed. I don't understand where did they go? So, yeah, YouTube is, okay. Well, anyway, let's talk about something and I will figure it out though. And so Final writes, oops, there goes away me super chat. No, I will get to all of them somehow. I bought a second phone. So if you followed along on some of my previous super chats, there's this fun almost meme happening where I've decided, I always am going to say, oh, I'm going to bring along a second phone so we can rent a scooter and go for a ride or, you know, I can look up on the map when we went to Boston together. You guys had to give me directions because I had no way to pull up a map on the single phone. So I'm like, great, I've got two phones. I've got this Samsung A16. I've got an S22. I'm all set. This is going to go as smooth as butter. And it was all going great until the app rebooted. And so now I'm trying to switch accounts so I can pull up Road Guy Rob. And then YouTube crashes. What the crap, man? YouTube. All right, you click the YouTube app. Okay. And then I go to my channel. And then I should be able to go to my previous live stream. Live. And then I go to before. And it won't do anything. See? Look. I clickety, 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 click, and it does nothing. Click, 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 click. I will get to your super chats. Let's get to the new ones here, though. So, hit super chat. Okay. So apparently, don't click on the thing that says super chat. All right. So I'm gonna just scroll backwards. You know, it's funny. YouTube all last year was working pretty good. They finally fixed the issue where I would start a live stream and it would be vertical, and they fixed it. Now, apparently, if I want to sort by only super chats so I don't miss your super chat, app crashes. So that's fun. Okay, so let's go back on this here and make sure we didn't miss any. So up first, final with $5, and I will later when they show up go back. Every super chat is going to get read before the night's over. But let's get caught up with what we got now and we'll go back. So final with a super chat writes, "Hey Rob, I love your videos on Portland in companion with your I-5 bridge video. What are your thoughts of light rail crossing the bridge into Washington?" It is absolutely a must. There's no point in expanding light rail into the state of Washington, or expanding the bridge without expanding the light rail. I kind of feel like to put the deal together, you kind of have to do both. I guess we're going all the way across the street because the sidewalk's closed here. You know, the neat thing is, although there's not a lot of public support for building out a whole light rail system into Vancouver at the moment, because it's new and it's scary, and I think once it's there, it gives Washingtonians a chance now or sometime in the future to build out something if they want to. And I know some meeting PDF I saw, just a concept plan was to say, well, what if C-Tran ran a light rail from downtown Vancouver up a ways to, you know, kind of in the vicinity of the 500 freeway, run it east to get to about the 205 corridor, run it south, eventually have it cross south with the 205 bridge back into Oregon, and connect to the Red Line at the Gateway Transit Center over on the east side, and then you have this like Vancouver loop. And if you think about it, if the goal of transportation is economic activity, it's to get out there and help people make money, what better way to make money than to really get in and have this really convenient way where right now doing business in Washington for somebody on the Oregon side, there's a lot of friction. But if you're able to get at it where instead of having all that friction, you can just seamlessly hop on a train and zip up to Vancouver, do what you need to do, and come back, that's good for business. I think I'd be really smart. Okay, let's stop here a minute and see what we got going on here. Over here is some of the magic they've had. This was already existing, but it's being able to go underneath the freeway going northbound and connect to the street that's on the I forget, it's not Dean Martin. Dean Martin Drive's the one we just saw on the west side. The one on the east side is I forget. It's named after another famous entertainer, I forget. But the back door, getting to all the back door of all the casinos is really what's important, because they're the taxpayers. The tourists don't really pay that much in taxes, and so you want to be able to get people to work. They're the Clark County residents. They're the ones that vote, and so they're the ones that you want to be able to get them in and out. And so if you have to build some back doors for them so they're able to get into the employee parking garage slip right off the freeway. It's probably in a lot of ways more convenient to be able to get in and out that way than it is for the tourists. Because again, I don't vote. I'm just somebody visiting. Final, thanks again for your super chat. So, okay, let's see. I'm gonna be very careful not to crash the phone. Jordan with a super chat. Jordan Trupner, thank you very much. Writes, you seem like the kind of guy who would order pineapple on a pizza. Well, my philosophy with pizza is it's like a sandwich, right? There's no wrong sandwiches. If you want to make a really great hoagie with pastrami and high-end Swiss cheese and tomato and all kinds of stuff, that doesn't mean that it's also wrong, therefore, to put peanut butter, honey, and banana on a piece of toast. You can do whatever you want, and pizza's the same way. So, do I go out of my way to put pineapple on a pizza? No, I don't go out of my way. But if it's there, I'm not going to turn it down. It's like pickles. I never would put a pickle on my sandwich. I'm not real crazy about them. But if the pickle's there, I'll eat it. It's fine. You know, it's the same with the pineapple. Now, apparently, I don't want to step between Chicago and New York with the pizza wars, but it's kind of like Sunni and Shia Muslims really getting in and having a fierce discussion about the Quran, and then random, dude from America rolls in. It's like, I got a thought on that. Well, that's the pineapple people. So I understand why out west we don't get respect for pineapple on pizza, especially when you guys are already in the middle of a huge turf war between New York thin slice and Chicago casserole pizza, which are both good. I'm not knocking the casserole pizzas, but it is a casserole. It's not really a pizza. A New York thin slice, forget about it. What? You might as well just not have a crust at all. Just put it straight on cheese. No, but yeah, pineapple's fine. So thank you very much. Alex with a super chat. Thank you very much. A little emoji going like this. It's like a talking lemon going like this. And that's their first super on a live stream ever, it says. So, well, thank you, Alex. I'm honored you picked this one. Probably talking about pineapple. I assume they say final rights, crime against humanity. Well, it's not a crime against humanity anymore. You could say a pickle. Like, okay, ketchup on a hot dog. That's fine. It's a little lonely if you have only ketchup on a hot dog, but you go to the wrong place and you suggest, I can't remember if it's, where would it be, back east or Chicago, I forget where, but you suggest putting, ketchup on a hot dog, they're going to smack you with the baseball bat at the game, Only mustard, no ketchup. I like mustard, I like ketchup. I probably like mustard more than ketchup, but I like ketchup. And it's like, yeah, am I going to go to a huge amount of effort to defend pineapple on a pizza? I will not. Because I don't care about it that much. It's yummy, but it's not, it's not that yummy. Now, my parents are true Californians. They grew up and were raised in California, and they'll get pineapple on the pizza all day, every day. But me, it's, I don't care that much. So, crime against humanity, nah. But I can understand why you feel that way. So Owen the rail fan writes, where are we? So we're right now on the Tropicana Bridge that I wanted to stand in the exact same place as we were 2 years ago. Only problem is that sidewalk over there is closed. Last time we were here 2 years ago, we stood on the old overpass, which has now been torn down and rebuilt with this much wider one. And we were standing facing southbound I-15. Where here they had a temporary diverging diamond interchange that's now back to being a conventional diamond. I guess it just fits better with what they're trying to do. And so I was excited to stand over there, but the sidewalk's closed. Although I see somebody jogging, so evidently it's not that close. But go ahead. But but at the time, let's see what my picture looks like. Oh yeah, I was going to show you what they'd done with the freeway. I think it looks kind of the same. I can show you the northbound side. So it's, you know, similar. So the namesake of the street is gone. Oh no, it's all good. I'm the one intruding, not you guys, so don't worry. We're talking about transportation because they have rebuilt all of this. So we're coming back 2 years later after everything's changed. There was all, that ramp was chopped off halfway in the middle. I don't know if you ever got a chance to see it. It was literally to nowhere.
Almost like slop stuff.
Yeah, like it would, and get across the crosswalk, and then I'll get distracted again. And we got to move on from pineapple on pizza because as fun and passionate as that is, it's not that exciting. So if you're following along at home, this would be Tropicana Avenue at Interstate 15. And we just crossed over to the Las Vegas Strip side, which is the east side. I'll stop and think about it. It's interesting here, the pedestrian phasing. We get a walk signal on this side, but to get across the free right turn, it's still a red hand. They've got a full, and I guess it makes sense. You would give a green to the right-hand turn the same time you'd have a green to go straight across. It just feels kind of asymmetrical as a pedestrian because you're like, oh yeah, I got my walk sign, I can go across, but you can only come halfway and then you're stuck waiting for everybody else. Normally at a regular intersection where you don't have this kind of volume, you would, you know, these cars would yield to the pedestrians, but obviously they can't do that here. And I better take this or we're going to be here for another 5 minutes. T-Mobile Arena here. I'm not sure what's going on down there. You have the Metro PD doing some kind of traffic control or something. Find a good place to stop where I'm out of the way. Okay, this is probably out of the way enough here. You can see flip the camera back around toward me. You have a view of the rapidly aging Excalibur there. You know, how do you start to feel if you're a casino and all your buddy casinos start getting bulldozed because they're getting too old? We'll talk about that when we get walking down there. Why Tropicana Street doesn't have anything to be named after anymore. And it was not the orange juice. So, yeah, I think overall they had like 4 goals for this project over here. And see if they, of course, they can cross them off here. A more efficient traffic flow in and around the interchange with widening Tropicana Avenue from 3 lanes to 4 lanes and realigning Dean Martin Drive underneath Tropicana. So if you were in stream number 1, which it looks like you and many others have found your way back over here, and if so, I'm grateful for that. Well, it is a much wider bridge than it used to be. It's definitely carrying a lot more traffic east and west, so you get rid of that choke point of people trying to get over. So that's a check. And then we started over there at the beginning of the previous stream, part 1, at where the frontage road went underneath. So those are 2 good things. Okay, second, improved travel time reliability on Interstate 15 with the addition of active traffic management signs on I-15. Well, that was part of a big project that they already did. In fact, the signs are off right now. But down there on the freeway, it's kind of hard to see, but there's I'm not able to pinch them right now because the app's not working right. I don't want to crash it again. It won't focus. But anyway, if you could see, there's a big overhead freeway sign that Las Vegas put in, and it's completely digital with a variable speed limit. So yeah, they've done that. So you have more travel time. And I think there's reliability, right? Like maybe it's slow, but it's consistently slow the same every single day. And the hope is that it's faster. Okay. Number 3, improved air quality due to free-flowing traffic as a result, in part, to the eliminated traffic signals on D. Martin Drive. Yeah, because you don't have that stoplight on the other side of the freeway backing everybody up because the through traffic's going underneath. And with conventional gasoline cars, the less the cars are idling, the better the air quality is, because idling, the engine's running very inefficiently, it's polluting the most, and you're getting no work for it. It's going to be interesting to see, though, because that's one of the 3 or 4 big arguments for every congestion project. In fact, the category of money from the federal government to help with those is called CMAQ, I think, and it's like congestion management and air quality, because the theory is that you keep the cars moving, the air gets cleaner, and you get work, at least the dirty air is doing work. But, you know, I had the privilege in December of getting a used hybrid car to make it so I can keep filming things in other states. And it doesn't idle at all at a stoplight. So, and then people with an electric vehicle, well, they don't put any pollutants, at least not out the vehicle, you know. There's no direct emissions from the vehicle being idling. So 20 years from now, it'll be interesting to see what traffic engineers and planners argue, trying to fight for federal funds. And maybe that CMAQ bucket of money goes away in the future, and you know, a new Congress will change it to something else. And finally, easier ingress and egress, my favorite engineering term to mean getting in and getting out, to and from the resort corridor due to signal improvements, added capacity on the Tropicana ramps. Yeah, the on and off ramps now are very large. And adding a new high occupancy vehicle half interchange at Harmon Avenue. And that's something I'd love to show you. It's a half a mile away, though, down a freeway. So maybe we won't, but we'll see if we get over there. Earlier on part 1 of the stream, you mentioned that freeway interchanges, spacing getting too close together. And one of the tricks a state can do is, if you have a lot of traffic coming on and off, it's always on the outside, right? If you can keep the carpool lane separate, doing its own thing, it can have its own on and offs separate from the outside. And so what they did here is they've got like 1 mile from here to Spring Mountain Road. And so they're at Harmon, which is a half mile down, putting in another exit would make it a lot easier to access stuff off of Harmon. Because if you think about it, if somebody can get out from the freeway directly onto Harmon and get into a place, then that saves them clogging up this interchange and then clogging up Las Vegas Boulevard and then clogging up Harmon, right? So they can go one side of a square instead of, or 2 sides of a square instead of 2 sides of a square. Anyway, somehow it's more efficient. But you can't do it if you just clog up the freeway with too many off-ramps. But if you add the exit from the left off the carpool lane, it's its own thing, because there's not that many exits from there. So they got clever. They said, okay, well, we can't add an exit on the right side. We'll put it on the left just for carpools. And so that's pretty cool. I drove through it earlier today. I couldn't go on it because I don't have a carpool. It's just me. But it looks neat. So, okay. Real life problems with a super chat. Well, good to see you. Thanks for your super chat. Real Life Problems writes, I'll just write at it again since you're one of my favorite YouTubers and deserve the money. Well, I'm going to get to, I promise, once YouTube gets its act together, we're going to go through all of them here somewhere. But you're very kind. Are you planning on doing a video on the new Interstate 69 bridge between Indiana and Kentucky, making I-69 there, the 3 states continuous? It hasn't been on my radar yet. I appreciate you letting me know, because last I checked in on it, it was just an idea, so it's good to hear that it's moving along. Is that the one outside of Evansville? Now I got to pull my map up. I actually know the Mount Vernon area a little bit because I had cousins who grew up there, and they loved it. You know, even though the only thing to do in town was Dairy Queen, but they had a lot of fun growing up in southern Indiana. And another friend, northern Kentucky, northwest Kentucky, and he was telling me his mom lost her house in a tornado, which tornadoes, it's a concept of a scary thing. It's not something that actually happens. Except that one time where there was a tornado in Salt Lake City, only like an F2, but it terrified all of us. I was a teenager scouting camp up in the mountains, and sorry, you like to pull pranks on each other. I go to this like class, and these kids go, "Dude, there was a tornado! Like, blew the windows and the Delta Center with jazz playing." Like, I wasn't born yesterday, you idiot. Like, we get tornadoes in Utah. Oh, we got a tornado. Blow out all the windows on the Delta Center. Okay, Interstate 69. Kentucky. I believe. Louisville. 65. Yeah, Evansville. That's going to be a great bridge. Part of it is why I covered one is because oh, hi. How are you? Good. See a van like that every day. It's like a Japanese. The cab over design with front wheel under the driver's seat. Road Guy Rob. Road Guy Rob. Where? YouTube. Okay. I don't see a van like that every day with the front wheel under the seat. The front wheel's under the driver's seat. Most cars. The front wheel's in front. Where they belong. Okay. What were we talking about? So a lot of it is the Oregon Bridge. It was so just the politics of the region wild that was part of what made the story was the effort that the replacement program people have to go because the bridge fell apart once before. That's what makes the story. So I guess is there a challenge with funding or politics that 69 bridge particularly challenged? That's where it becomes an interesting story and get me more excited to get out there. I'm going to take a ton of arm twisting. It's opportunity. The problem is I have several videos always lined up. I think it's a stick shift. It rolled backwards. Van, I want one. And there it goes. See it, little white van getting on the freeway. How often do you see a cab over? I don't know if that was a Toyota van or what that was. Something, but a cab over van, the stick shift, the clutch in it rolls back a little bit. Want one. All right. Anyway, question. Yeah, I think with the I-69 story, the other one I wanted to do between a variety of challenges is the race to 40, where they had the hurricane damage. But that hasn't happened yet either. It's because of the distance. I've got to really plan ahead where a lot more impulsive with stories out west. Story coming out for May might involve that caught on fire in Wyoming. So might be the first people to get permission to go in with an engineer and see the inside. So, but I really appreciate they're from real life problems, and I'll your other one when we get around to it here. So Kirk says, Saskatchewan, howdy, Kirk. Let's see. Normally I try to filter, don't miss any super chats, and that's what crashes the app. That's stream number 2 here. So Adam writes with the super chat. Thanks again, Adam. It was a suburb back in the 60s. Today. The concept, I can tell, I'm not an urban planning historian, but I can tell is back in the 20s, sort of as the car was starting to come out, even back as early as the 1880s, 1890s, I realized they had a problem. Cities, especially back then, were very bad places. Industrialization meant horrible, and people had to be walking distance to, and so it was awful. You were living in really crowded quarters with very bad plants, no sanitary sewer stuff. Horrible, but you had to go there because agriculture, the diesel motor getting, and so the population of cities started regions so much that not everybody could continue to work in agriculture. Was allowing us to produce a lot more agricultural products without needing so many people working. And so where you went from the world 50% of people working in agriculture to like 10% in agriculture, what happened? Well, they all the city started working building things. That was the next phase. You had to live near the factory. And so somewhere when the electric streetcar right around the turn of the century, people figured out, they go, hey, we all miss living in the country. Fresh air at night, kids could run around out in the and it was just so much better. This miserable dystopian life. I mean, we feel like sometimes we utopia. What do you think it felt like for somebody in the 1880s, 90s who had to move to New York or Philadelphia or one and live in a place where it was in London, they got the river caught on fire. The crap in the Thames River. The Thames River caught on fire. It was bad. And so the idea that you could use technology to solve the problem out the country again. This will be great. You take the streetcar and you ride out to a bunch of houses outside of town where the air is a little more clean, and then take the factory to work. Well, then the car gets in. Kind of live anywhere. See, live like way. And so then the war happened. I don't know what America would have, the 1960s and 50s and 60s would have happened in the 30s and 40s had it not been for the Depression. I think the technology made it inevitable. It was, but the Depression, people new houses, and then the war. Well, people weren't building houses. And then all of a sudden, all the GIs come home. These boys were now men because of what they'd seen. And, between drinks to handle their, they formed families. And we built houses. So in the 50s and 60s, it was building off this idea. Well, cities are clean. We've pushed all polluted stuff way outside of town or even export. And so cities are like the rich. They're nice. So we can't figure out why did everybody flee to the suburbs and the because people all over the planet. Kids were growing up in the cities in the 1910s and 20s. How awful they were, and how much wonderful it was to be able to live outside in the country and then use transport from the countryside, the country city, the amenities of a city, but living in the countryside into town. And so they went all in on this because the thing for the few privileged people who had the ability to buy a motor car from work. And now, post-war prosperity, society, we want to give this to everybody. We did. The problem is when you give it to everybody, when you start unintended consequences. One of them was a heck of a lot of cars and jamming the freeways and cars, and one could argue now type of thing where not nearly as bad as in the turn of the century living in the tenements of a city. Have a lot of stress from long commute, freeway smog and freeway noise and just a lot of stress surrounding now. But there hasn't really been that in technology yet that's like this thing. I suppose that's probably what it is, right? Which they're taking jerks. But sister moved to the country. She found a place, going out toward the south. Lives in a beautiful area, and trees, and doesn't really have to leave the house because the internet does the commuting for other than going shopping and doing things she wants to do. So she's her transportation carbon footprints. And it's kind of probably be an unintended consequence of that. Anyway, so in the 60s, the planners were still like these guys who remembered life in tenements, so focused on trying to maximize the number of people drive a car and get out. They weren't. Why would you even think? Pedestrians. The goal of the road isn't to go for a casual stroll to downtown. The road is to get people from their house out in the country, in the suburb, where the air is clean and the kids in the yard, and get him to work as speedily, cost effectively as possible. The plan in a suburb today is we've had 60 years of the consequence. We may be underpriced the benefits of suburbs because we're always focused on the problem and not on the benefit. But that's good because we're focused on the problem. Like, not everybody can drive a car. Maybe some people actually want to walk places. Maybe one type of infrastructure can make us vulnerable if that type is down. Right? If we're all Atlanta, 85, the bridge got on fire. A bunch of plastic pipes under the freeway, and then a person went down there and it's cold. And I don't know if he lit up a cigarette. Then he lit up the whole bridge on accident. And I-85 was shut down while they raced to rebuild that bridge. Everybody was vulnerable because we'd only one type of thing, except we didn't. Atlanta had MARTA, and so because they had MARTA, their economy continued because people who would normally drive could take the train. Right? That's sort of the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and on. Thinking about resiliency. Before the COVID supply chain crash, it was all about efficient supply chains. Until we realized that supply chain's a bad supply chain, that supply chain breaks. You want resilient supply chain. Same with the transportation system. You build a really efficient bang for your buck, trying to move the most people and vehicles, the highest speed you can, the least amount of money. Until somebody sets the freeway on fire. So I would say that's the big difference. I would hope today's suburb is also creative in trying to figure out what a suburb looks like. What we build, everybody having a house 20 feet back from the street on each side. It's not a bad model. It works in a lot of places. But you have to put it more creative. They didn't care about that. That's a great. Thank you, Adam. Brickett Super Chat writes, may I ask for a live reaction and thumbnail of my Brickett project? I sent it by email, and I'm an aspiring creator. How to do a V-edit yet? I hope you come back to the light rail video. Okay. Sure, why not? So Brickett to send me an email, a fan thumbnail for his Brickadia. Hopefully with the glare. So, it's my work email. Have I set up my work email on this phone? I know I've set up my. I've just set up. Well, this is going to be really exciting, guys. What did you do? Somebody walks in and says, "What stream are you watching?" Standing on a sidewalk near a freeway. Public account. Oh wow, that sounds fun. Where can I? I don't even. It's that phone. It's not on this phone. Oh, maybe web browser. Maybe I can go to mail.com. Maybe I'll do that. Keep the Wi-Fi. Mail. Wait a minute. It's not. Okay. So apparently, Office 365 Outlook. Search for. Okay, log into Outlook. So that's what I'm logging into Outlook. And I'm signing in. And then it tells me I should download the app, but I ignore it. Oh, sign in. And then it shows me a picture of an envelope. Type in. Sign in with GitHub. What? Put in my email. Part about having a clever password is that this one's a password manager anyway. When you have a clever password, you come up with a really funny password. And then you want to tell everybody, but you can't. I have a password that it just makes me laugh every time I type it in. And then and I can never tell ever because it's my master password. Okay. Is it got a two-factor? Samsung Pass. This is going to get really exciting here. So now it's wanting to do something called Samsung Pass. Okay. I'm a boomer, I'm a millennial, but I'm turning into a... Okay, so then I have to sign in a different way. Have it two-factor, and then I got to read it real quick because I can't go out because it'll come to the... Okay. 76340. 5763. Because they never give that code out to anyone. Okay. My Outlook. Okay, Brick Attack. Doing this. Pick an account. Clicked on it. There's an email from Brick Attack. There's also one that says audio is... Rob, you're having audio issues. Oh, shoot. I wonder if it's because I'm in a noisy place. Shoot. Your stream might be cutting in and out since the first super chat of stream 2. All right. How about that? Yeah, I'm going to go to the bottom because it sounds like, and then I got to come back to the super chats here. So if I do no microphone, shoot. Okay, I'm going to do is we're going to do no microphone at all. And you Team Apple people, okay. I wanted to get good equipment, but it doesn't exist. So I thought, okay, get away from this reggae music here. I went to the Apple store and I bought actual ear pods that plug into the phone, thinking, oh, this will be good. I won't have problems with it. All right. So, I had to figure something else out. Oh, shoot. Okay, well, hopefully me just shouting at the camera like this will work adequately. Okay. Joe about right. So the first mistake was going to the Apple store. Okay, where were we? Well, I appreciate that you were patient and sat through garbage audio. I'm not going to pull it here. I'm not actually going to litter. I'll pick it up. All right. One of these days, all I want is some way of reliably having a headset mic with a big fluffy filter for the wind so I can just talk to you wirelessly. But the problem is the batteries, I don't know if they last, you know. So I'd show you this monstrosity I've been using to take the battery bank and the headphone audio and put them together. And I miss the old days of like XLR connections and like big hunky pieces of equipment, you know, that were really reliable. But get the power back on here at least. But yeah, maybe this guy started having problems. I don't know. Okay, well, I'll just shout and hopefully that'll work. All right, so when we last left off, Brickitect had sent fan art. Okay, so there's the fan art here. Let's pull this up here. So it looks like something you built with a, how would you describe that? Like It's not like city skyline. It actually looks like a Lego-based thing, but you can see there's the rail system here and the bridge going over it. I assume, is that you there, the little Lego character there? It says bike bridge over a tram line. Oh, okay, so that's a bike bridge. Okay, well that's cool. Yeah, so that's fun. Yeah, it's fun to build creative thumbnails like that. I haven't seen one done like that using Lego. So we hear you 5 times 5 now with the shouting. Okay, well, evidently, and Brickatech Rex, I built that by hand using Brickadia, an indie game. Okay. Well, evidently, the audio is pretty good now. Okay, let's walk down a little bit, and while we do, let me go back to some of the super chats here. Chris Hayes writes for the new microphone fund, the very generous. Thank you. Like I said, I need to figure out what works. Every time I try to get advice on Reddit or somewhere about live streaming, it's all people who are studio streamers. I have a hard time finding people who actually go out and like walk around trying to find, well, what do we do for audio? And especially now that they took my microphone jack away and I have to use the USB port for everything, it's a real pain. Okay. All right. ACR Speed says you should get a moderator or two who can contact or text you on your phone if something goes wrong. Yeah, and I appreciate you have incredible patience to put up with having really bad audio for that long. I think they've got a game going on. Look at all the traffic heading into the stadium over there, the garage. Wonder if it's what's in season right now? Hockey? A lot of people walk around with Golden Knights jerseys, so. But walk down here a little ways. But yeah, I'm still learning. Yeah, I've had somebody before offer to help with equipment, but the problem is by the time you start putting all the equipment together, it would be almost like bringing a whole cart of equipment, you know. And so I'm trying to figure out what's still really lightweight and portable, then carry around and not get tired, but also, you know, give you good, reliable sound. Maybe just shouting at the phone, maybe that's the right answer. It goes against everything I ever learned. All the broadcast stuff I've ever done, I've learned, oh, you want a separate mic. That's why I, point a mic at my face when I'm out filming so I can try to get good audio. Okay, let's see where we're at here. You can watch the cars flooding into the Circus garage for the Golden Knights game here. So it's only letting me scroll back in time so far. So I hope I caught everybody. Like I say, I don't know what's going on with the YouTube app, why every time I try to switch to make sure I catch all the super chats, it crashes on me. Chris Hayes, the thing is Rob can go on and on for hours, so we might be here for a while. I'm sorry. Hopefully the audio's good from here on out. Okay, is he using a Dollar Tree mic? No, it was an Apple mic. It's going right in the garbage. All right. Let's see. Get past microphone. Let's see. Way better. Okay, no, that's good. It feels pretty. Make sure I'm not blocking the sidewalk here. It's like comically embarrassing for me to go back and see all of these comments. You guys are trying to desperately warn me. Do you know you have about 15 minutes of audio cutouts? Yeah. All right. So we're caught up with Chris Hayes. Thank you very much. Greg B. with the biggest super chat I have ever seen in my life. Entering something I didn't even know exists, Greg B. The Triple Digit Club. Okay, well, I assume that's for a mic, so I need to now find out what the right thing is, because they do have those wireless DJI ones. I gotta see whether it works with YouTube, because YouTube's limited to what it works, but that would be fantastic, and then I could just have that as my live stream kit. So thank you very much. Oh my gosh, like I had no idea. Somebody says try asking a Disney World streamer, writes Enthusiast. It's probably not a bad idea. I don't watch a lot of live streaming, so that's why I'm kind of a rookie at this, is because I come from old broadcast, not new stuff. You know, you say, well, Rob, who's your favorite streamer on Twitch? And I'm like, I don't know. And then again, a lot of those people are, like there was one I was watching for a while who was this woman back east who was a lawyer, and she was kind of fun to watch, but she did it all using like a Elgato Stream Deck and different effects. She was doing it in a home studio. And that's what I'm saying, is I'm trying to figure out, like, so Walt Disney World one, that could be a good idea. Adam with another super chat, right? So why not a Bluetooth audio that connects to the stream? Yeah, and that might be the right answer. The other is trying to find one that's got a long battery life, because sometimes we get carried away. Like we're not even down to the corner yet. We're at well, over an hour on this one. So what are we at, an hour and a half to 2 hours now? Big Egg writes, the Vegas nights start at 9:30 with local time, which would be in, right, people are getting here early then. That's not till 9:30, and you got the traffic backing up, starting to fill up that garage at 6. And people are excited to get out of here. Anybody who wondered whether Vegas was a big enough market to handle an NHL team, proven right. Working just fine. You know, Salt Lake City, where I grew up, stole the Arizona team, and that's an entirely different discussion. Oh, we can talk about it. It's down here, the A's, where they want to build the stadium. How much money do you have to get local taxpayers on board to be able to win the team over? And apparently, when Arizona said no, Utah said yes. Now Utah is a hockey team. Can't come up with a name for it, because I just say it. I grew up very proud of my Utah Jazz, but the reason why they're still called the Jazz is because there's nothing that interesting in Utah to name a sports team after. And so we're still the Jazz, and apparently now we're the Utah Hockey Club, because they haven't come up with anything. I mean, these Golden Knights, that's a cool name, you know. We had the Golden Eagles when I was a kid. All right. Let's see. Aaron of MPLS writes, less premium phone with a mic jack, Galaxy A32 has one. So evidently, a couple of people have commented that the video quality on the S22 is looking a lot better. I was using an A52 before. It doesn't, but my phone didn't work on Verizon, so I had to get this phone when I switched. And that's the challenge, is trying to find a phone that is good at streaming and has good processor power and a good selfie camera. And I don't know, at the A32, that sounds like it's probably a step backwards from the A52 that I'd had. And that's the challenge, is I loved having that microphone jack. It gave me options, but maybe it's time to just embrace the future and just get a Bluetooth thing and hope it all syncs up well. Heaven knows it's hopefully better than whatever the heck you guys, you patiently sat through for 15 minutes there. Glad Clef with a super chat. Thank you very much, Glad Clef. You write, hot take time. All right. What's the best thing we can do for transportation safety? Let's walk and talk while I'm thinking about that, because that's a best thing we can do for transportation safety. Well, there's so many things to fix. That's kind of like saying, what's the one thing we can do to fix cancer? It's like, well, what kind of cancer do you want to fix? What do we want to do to reduce fatalities and injuries on the road? I know rural safety, as rural areas turn into suburban, urbanized areas, a lot of times we don't fix the driveways. When you're out in the countryside, on a country highway, you can put a driveway pretty much anywhere you want, because who cares? You gotta, you're driving for miles and miles in the countryside. You need to be able to turn in and access a business or something, and so you just end up coming in and connecting your driveway to the state highway, and life's good. And it's not that big of a deal because it's the country and there's not that many driveways, right? But what happens when it builds up to the point? Let's see what's my time to cross here. My turn to cross? Okay.
Yeah, this guy's taking forever.
Okay. Hockey game tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Have a good night.
Appreciate it.
See, you get to some of these areas like in rural Tennessee and stuff where you get out of ways, and like I was thinking outside of Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and it was a country highway, and every inch of it had filled up with touristy stuff, and of course every business connected a driveway. Driveway. You go to a lot of places, especially in the south and back east. How many driveways does a gas station need? And so it's on the corner. You'll have 4 driveways, and 2 of those driveways are right up against the corner. And what Federal Highway have found is within 200 feet of the intersection, you put in a driveway, the crash rate just skyrockets. It's like a log curve. And so if you can try to first say, you know what, let's not have driveways right next to the intersection. Let's make businesses kind of share their driveways and space them out a little bit. Because if you think about it, every place you have a driveway is a place where cars on the main highway and cars coming in and out of the driveway can collide. And then anybody walking or riding a bike on the side of the road can get hit by cars turning in and out of the driveway. So if you can take the number of driveways and shrink them down, well, that improves safety quite a bit. You see what they've done here. They put a big barrier wall, control it with a signal, no turn on red. So, when it's our turn to go, it's our turn to go. But you could easily, each one of these casino properties would probably love to have 5 driveways along this road, make it really easy to get in and out. And so it's having Clark County and NDOT come in and say, no, you get one and you have to share it with your neighbor. But that can help, really, anytime you rebuild a street, go through and say, hey, do we really need that many driveways? So that's probably my hot take of the first thing to look at. And it kind of gets overlooked because driveway consolidation isn't really sexy. It's not a topic that's going to make a really hot thumbnail that a lot of people want to click on. We're going to focus on, reducing speed limits and focus on getting more people to take transit and road diets and all this stuff. And that's all good too. But if you really look at where a lot of the fatalities happen, they're on the old country highways, the ones that probably should be freeways. If you think about it, on a freeway, we remove all the driveways. There are 0, right? And so it's these country highways that should be freeways. There wasn't enough money to make them a freeway, so they just turn into a big street. They're still maybe 50 miles an hour. And now you have driveways everywhere so people can make crazy left turns anywhere they want. And so that means you're cruising down the highway, and then somebody busts a left turn right in front of you, T-bone crash, somebody gets killed. Consolidate the driveways, that doesn't happen as much. Anyway, go ahead, Chef. Thank you very, very much for your super chat. Excuse me. My Adventures writes, if you come to Boise for an episode, all of the new constructions and highways I can help film. As always, I love your quirky content. Well, it's very kind of you to offer. I know that Boise is interesting because it's growing a lot. looking at their regional transportation plan going out 30 years in the future, it's not nearly ambitious enough. They are like, well, maybe we can like fix up the big state highway that goes east and west, not into a full freeway, but just into something. Or they have that new highway out kind of in the Meridian area that goes north and south, but it's not really a freeway. It's just sort of a big road with, no driveways on it. It's just good. But if you get looking big picture, it's like, well, they got to do more than that, because if Boise doubles in size and it's all going to be like single family houses, most people are going to be driving cars. They're going to have to build a freeway. You can't, like, it's like, well, we don't want to build a freeway because that'll turn us into LA, but we're going to still only allow the kind of development like they did back 50 years ago in LA, single family houses sprawling endlessly. And it's like, I warned Boise to take a look at like Tucson, Arizona, where they did that, and you end up with a city that's a little bit frustrating to drive through because there's really not much in terms of a freeway to get places, and so you just spend all day at red lights, and you end up with some weird crash statistics because people are running into each other at intersections versus being on freeways where they can, like on a freeway you sideswipe, on an intersection you have a T-bone crash, and the T-bone crash is always a lot more injury prone or deadly prone. Yeah, to the right here, that's the Excalibur, which I mentioned is aging, but its buddy across the street here is now just a pile of rubble, and that was the Tropicana itself. And that's where, when we started stream number 1 a couple of hours ago at the Wild Wild West, where the A's thought they had locked up a pretty sweet deal to build the stadium there. Evidently, this property owner in the Clark County put together an even better deal over here, and so they bulldozed one of the oldest remaining casinos on the Strip over the past year. And it was interesting too, because we used to just tower over this corner, and it was the namesake for the street Tropicana. I think the joke is it was the last of the old mob-owned casinos, although it had been corporate forever, but the old Teamsters Union pension fund money, I think helped build it originally. And yeah, it's gone. I'd actually go up to the skywalk to get you a better view, but Clark County passed an ordinance that now makes stopping on the sky bridge technically a misdemeanor. Evidently, that's the biggest social ill the county has now, so good for them. No, it's because of the Formula One races. It's the one place where you could actually get a free view of the race, and Formula One being, I don't know, I don't want to say because I'd be too impolite, but being Formula One, they wanted to make sure nobody was getting a free view, so Clark County now has an ordinance that you can't stop on the sky bridge, so we're going to be down here at ground level where I can. So, got a picture here. Think of what it used to be here. So this is the complex from above, from Google Maps. So we're on the opposite corner looking across. But I mean, some of these were very tall towers that were there. And it didn't have a grand, spectacular implosion quite like I was anticipating. Typically, when they implode a tower, they do it basically like you sell off the furniture and then you implode the building. But because it was so old and had asbestos that they had to remediate, they gutted it first. So you kind of felt a little less bad seeing the tower get imploded, because they had to go through floor by floor and gut it and do hand demolition floor by floor and pull all that asbestos out. So by the time they imploded it, they were just imploding the concrete and steel frame, and somehow that when you're blowing up the shell of a building instead of the whole building, sentimentality is sort of robbed from it. In exchange, the city's going to get something that probably will not look like this at all, but initial renderings are always fun. A giant baseball for baseball. And it'll be interesting to see how closely the finished product resembles that. The theory being that although it won't be the first totally indoor baseball arena, it'll be one of a handful in the country where you can come out here and watch baseball on a hot 120-degree day, but it'll be 72 inside the bubble where people are playing. So, which I guess makes sense. You're spending that kind of money, may as well go all in. But I don't know. To me, it seems something about watching baseball indoors seems kind of not very baseball-like. I'm not exactly Mr. Baseball. So I don't know much about it. So all right, let's see. We got Toronto. Getting tongue-tied tonight. I gotta drink of water here. Toronto Transit Channel with the super chat. Thank you very much, Toronto Transit Channel. Which at some point I need to get out to Toronto. I've actually wanted to get out there and do a few stories, including what the heck is going on with your provincial government and bicycle lanes. But oh, forgive me. Okay, but you're right. Damn it, as an Oakland resident, nah, fam. Yeah, it's okay. So there's the thing. Yeah, let me get on a pedestal here for a minute. The challenge with these stadiums is they want to make every bit of money they can. I respect that. But it gets to the point where they start playing states off of each other using kind of I would dare say, a corrupt version of what Carmel did with, oh shoot, I'm tired, I've forgotten the term, but it's where you defer the tax payments. So in other words, like in Carmel, what they would do is loan the developer money to build the parking garages as a public benefit, with the city owning the concession on the parking. So it's truly public parking. And then use the increase in the tax revenue, tax increment financing. So the property had been making tax at this level, but if you built the development, it would make tax at this level. And then you'd use that difference to pay off the loan over 30 years. And so the public isn't necessarily seeing a decrease in tax revenue because they were only going to make this much off of it, and now they're going to make this much off of it. And so for 30 years, they use that difference to pay off the parking garage. And then once the parking garage is paid off, now you have an elevated tax level that then generates revenue. Okay. I don't know if that's exactly what they're doing with the A's, because the thing that they described it, they called it something like, got my notes here. I thought I had my notes here. I don't have my notes. I've got my receipt from FedEx office. I must have left it at FedEx office. Great. Anyway, it was here it is. Found it. So they call it a transfer tax credit. So I don't know what that is. I'm assuming it's like a TIF thing where the Tropicana was making this much and the ball stadium will make this much. And so then that gives money over time that they can transfer that tax difference to the developer, so they have money up front to build the stadium. So it costs the team owner less money to build the stadium up front, so that then over time that tax difference pays it back or something. I forget. It's one of these things that sounds really scammy. Maybe it is, but once somebody explains it to you, it doesn't sound quite so bad. So of the $1.5 billion that they're going to use to build the baseball building for baseball, basically $380 million of it Clark County residents are on the hook for with this 180 of it transfer tax credit. Okay. But the reason it's ending up here and not somewhere else, like staying in Oakland, is Oakland's not in a position where they can do something like this because Oakland's in trouble, right? Oakland is their own problems, and I think it would not be good leadership of people of, is that Alameda County there, to be saying, yeah, let's throw money at the A's to try to keep them when there's more important pressing issues in Alameda County that they really need to be spending the money on than trying to retain the A's. Furthermore, the A's are shopping anyway. So it's not even like, oh, well, the A's are in trouble and we Alameda County to help them out. The A's are fine. It's the A's are going around and they're going from town to town, and even, like I say, here, 2 different sites here in Vegas, playing everybody off of each other. It's like that Amazon. Do you remember that Amazon competition they had about 6 or 7 years ago, where Amazon claimed they were going to open a second headquarters? And so all of these towns, like Pittsburgh and towns in Ohio and things like that, that really desperately could have used the Amazon headquarters, went to a lot of trouble to put presentations together and put together deals and everything to try to woo Amazon to their city. Only at the end for Amazon to announce they were going to New York. And good on New York. You know what New York said? They said, screw you. You were just using us to play against everybody else. Forget it. You want to come to New York, you can just pay full price. And guess what? Amazon paid full price. So New York called their bluff. But that's not going to happen here, because if they play this game, like, it'll be good for Clark County, right? It's just really not fair, though, because Clark County's in a different position, has different expenses and concerns and tax base that makes it where Oakland can't compete. And so this storied franchise has been part of Alameda County forever. Well, now they have to leave Alameda County because the A's want a better deal. You know, it reminds me of Planet Money, which is a great podcast on NPR, has an episode they did a few years ago about Kansas City, Missouri, and how they have some of the most corporate headquarters in the world right along the street that's the state line. And these businesses keep hopping back and forth because they'll say, hey, we're in Kansas, but we're thinking about relocating our headquarters to Missouri. What kind of tax incentives can the state of Missouri throw at us? And Missouri's like, we'd love to have you. You know what? You come over, we'll give you this deal, it'll last like 5 years or whatever. And so then the business says, oh, that's really generous of you. Thank you. In fact, we're really excited. We're committed to the state of Missouri. We're going to move. So when their lease is up, they lease a building right across the street in Missouri. None of their employees have to move. They're technically now part of the Missouri tax base. Everybody wins, right? Well, okay, that's fine. They do that for a few years until the tax incentive starting to expire. And then they call up Kansas and they say, hey, we used to be in Kansas and, we really miss you guys. And we were thinking about maybe leaving Missouri and going back to Kansas. What sort of tax incentives can you throw at us to bring us back? And the Kansas people say, we'd love to have you back. We've missed you. How about for 5 years we give you this great deal? And they go, okay. So when the lease expires, they move back across the street to the other side to Kansas. And these corporate, so there's an enormous amount of money in this area because you have so many corporate headquarters jumping back and forth. It's a broken system. It's hurting the taxpayers of both states. But yet, like, the secondary and tertiary jobs of having all these corporate headquarters located there that wouldn't be there if they weren't being able to play that game. And so it's like, is it a good thing or a bad thing? And it's like, well, it's both. That's how I feel about this. Is this a good or bad thing? I don't know. But I do sympathize. It sucks for Alameda County and for Oakland, especially after how many years the team's been there. Okay, Adam with the Super Chat writes, Las Vegas should have more transit riders for game days. They got a good bus service. I was impressed. Last summer I was here without a car. In fact, through the live stream that I got rained on. It almost happened today. It was pouring rain earlier. the challenge is they have the monorail. We can walk back down to that again. It's been a couple years since we've been down there. Maybe if I put the tripod all away, we could carry the phone on. But the monorail is interesting. So they opened it in like 1995 using 2 trains that they bought used from Disney World, and we're operating it back and forth. And they did it for like 7 years, and then I think realized, okay, they got to expand this thing and actually take it seriously. So they took out a bond for like $600 million, bought 9 Bombardier trains. If you're a train nerd, they're Innova 200 trains. 9 of them, expanded it to just under 4 miles long, goes from the convention center, basically about to here at MGM Grand, right behind me here. And so the monorail kind of parks just over there. And you know what they got rewarded for? Even though they got a lot of ridership, they got rewarded with a bankruptcy in 2010. Evidently, people liked the monorail, but they didn't like $600 million like it. So the bonds, they defaulted on the bonds. So I think they restructured it, operated it again for a while, and then in 2020, when everything shut down, well, they were broke again. They defaulted on the bonds because now nobody was riding it, right? Because nobody was coming to Las Vegas. Everything was shut down. So then what? Well, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Bureau, who are the ones who own the big giant convention center down there where they have the Consumer Electronics Show, all the big trade shows down there, they bought it because there's no way you can get that many convention center attendees in with a car. You certainly can't park them. The convention center is millions of square feet, and even though they bought out an entire casino, flattened it, and I forget which casino that was. It's an old one. It started with an S, I think. But they flattened it, put in a big surface parking lot, fills up in minutes, you know. And so having the monorail shuttle people from most of the hotels, at least the ones on the east side of Las Vegas Boulevard, and then it goes up just a little past the convention center. It's great. So, and the $650 million, $650 million monorail. They bought it in a fire sale after that second bankruptcy for, I have the price here, $24 million. So they got, what's that, 1/20th the price or something? I mean, it was a steal. And they're planning to just operate the thing until it breaks, which they say should be quite a while. But when it does break down, they're not sure what they're going to do with it because it's got the elevated piers. And the local TV station, when they were talking to him, said that they got out of him, oh, maybe it'll tie in with the stuff going on underground with the Tesla's driving in dumb tunnels. And I don't know, I haven't been wowed by that yet. Driving a car in an underground tunnel just doesn't win me over as being all that exciting. So anyway, that's a bit of what's going on with the monorail. So, oh my gosh, Greg B with a gigantic super chat. Well, now I got to buy some equipment, Greg. I will buy some of those DJI clip-on Bluetooth things for next time. That's so Greg B sent in a huge super chat probably about a half an hour ago, and he's tripled it or doubled it. I'm not sure, but it's huge. So that's really generous of you. Thank you very much. I'm not even entirely sure what to say other than thank you. Let's see. Scroll down here. Let's see. Yeah, Mike Hunt writes, Greg B is getting that mic for you. Well, thank you. We better see an ad roll for Greg B. No, I only do ones that are not sponsored by. He's a sponsored by, not a not sponsored by.
Yes.
Damien writes, not a super chat, but just that's interesting. Damien writes, how does the new car compare to your old Fit? Well, I have them both. I found a used 21 Prius that Hertz Car Sales have priced wrong. It's kind of like a Monopoly where it says bank error in your favor. It was the end of the year, and anticipating major disruption to the auto market this year, I thought I better try to grab something. So it's priced at a point, the perfect point. It was good enough, and it was cheap enough and good enough a car I could actually buy it, but cheap enough that it was good enough I can actually use it for work and drive around the country again, which is good, and to film. Cheap enough that I can still afford to go around the country to film. So, because that's the problem I was running into, is I'm going, well, you go buy like a new Prius is over $30,000. Well, good luck. Now I can't go film. This was priced about half that, so not bad for something under 100,000 miles. It's got level 1.5 autonomy, which is enough to make sure I keep paying attention. So I'm excited. I've kept the Fit to drive around town because it's frankly more fun. I would rather keep putting as much wear and tear on the Fit, since Fit's valueless. I mean, if I tried to sell it, I'd get $1,200, just because of how high the mileage is, getting close to 400,000 miles. But I could just keep driving it locally. If it breaks, I'm not far from home, and then keep that mileage off the Prius, use it for work. So primarily that's worked very well. But I appreciate you asking, Damien. That's thoughtful of you. Toronto Transit Channel, April Fool's Day idea, Rail Guy Rob. I thought about doing one about Toad Guy Rob. I never did it, where I go talk to biologists about those toad crossings they have, the little tunnels under some of the highways to let turtles, little frogs get from one side of the road to the other without getting squashed, and changing the branding and everything, having like a hopping frog. And I never did it. It was a fun idea, but it was too much work. But Rail Guy Road, well, somebody once pointed out there are more than one kind of road, and a railroad is a kind of a road, so it fits. I still would like to, the perennial topic of actually doing my high-speed rail video, but it's always dependent on who do you talk to, because there's a lot of people who are knowledgeable about the project, but they're not objective. The High-Speed Rail Authority is going to be very much, nothing's wrong with it, it's amazing, it's perfect, it's great, and they'll be really knowledgeable from a technical standpoint, but they're not going to get into the vulnerability of the project. I can find critics of the project who are critical of it, knowledgeable about what's wrong with it, but they're not going to be objective either. I can find maybe somebody who's objective, but they're not going to be knowledgeable about the project. So I don't know if I have to try to find, that helicopter. I don't know if I have to try to find somebody who's in Europe or Asia or something who maybe would be knowledgeable but distant enough from the project to be objective. But I want to do that. So rail is definitely on the platform. It's more than just an April Fool's joke. Brickatect again, hello, writes, I was glad to vote against Coyotes coming to Tempe. Screwed Glendale for 20 years. Phoenix I-10 widened again. Why? Cars greater than everything else. Being outside sucks. Utah, this is new to Utah. Utah had one big team. They had the Jazz. And it was owned by an old guy, Larry Miller, who brought the Jazz there and just did things magnanimously. He made all his money selling cars, and so the Jazz were just something fun. He wasn't trying to squeeze every penny out of them. He was just trying to have a good time. He wanted an NBA team in Utah. He built the stadium for it. He did it, He made plenty of money, The new owner of the Jazz is playing the normal game that today's modern sports team owners play. We got another helicopter here. Not sure what that's about. And so it's going to be a wake-up call that other cities, Oakland and everywhere else, Arizona and things, have already had to deal with, of having playing the incentives game, right? So the new owner of the Jazz had not threatened to leave downtown. He just sort of announced that, oh, I'm so excited, we're going to build a new stadium for the Jazz, and for this hockey team I'm getting, we're going to build it out in the suburbs. Wasn't a threat. He just said it, but it was a threat. And so the Utah State Legislature, which are some of the most miserly, cheap people you'll find, raced in like 3 minutes, passed a $1 billion incentives bill to keep the Jazz downtown, because downtown needs the Jazz. They don't want the basketball team leaving. And so they're learning the same lesson where Tempe and the Coyotes and everything had enough, and they're like, we're done playing the incentives games, fine. You want incentives, you can leave. They knew Utah was so hungry for a team that, now the legislature's on the hook for $1 billion. Try to, not just for the Coyotes, but for the Jazz. And I'm just sitting there going, Utah's new to this game. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. No, they'll learn. Thanks again, Brigatech. Gladclef, that was a fabulous answer. I agree with Joe Vett. It's about conflict points. That was the question earlier Gladchef was asking about. We're talking about driveway consolidation. About conflict points, especially with pedestrians. Yeah, start with the driveways. A lot of times the best engineering answers are not sexy. They're just kind of bread and butter. You're not going to win big awards with the people who are excited about flashy things, but you can save lives. And at the end of the day, that's the goal. Quietly getting that fatality number to go down and down and down each year. Let's see. Not a super chat, but a comment from Mutilated Jellyfish writes, "Hey Rob, thanks for doing so many stories on California, Nevada, Utah, and I-15, and in Utah where I've lived and driven most of my life. I'm in Vermont now, which doesn't have too much except covered bridges." Yeah, I've never driven on a covered bridge. I've been to Maine, but I didn't venture far off of 95. I feel like you have to get out into the countryside to really start seeing the covered bridges and stuff. New England is fantastic. I stayed in Connecticut and I liked it a whole lot more than I should have. But I'm a sucker for warm weather, so I don't see myself actually moving out there. But I need to get back to New England at some point, do some stories. I got to get to the Southeast. I haven't even made it to the Southeast yet. But thank you for your comment. Baseball guy Rob, no. Let's see. Okay, we got Ryan Mead with your super chat, Ryan. Thank you. What do you think about New York City congestion pricing? Well, if you happen to be a contributor on Patreon and follow my little monthly podcast each month, I goof around just first of the month with what's going on in transportation news. I talked about it some. So, okay, my argument all along has been, if we're going to do congestion pricing in America, I can think of like two places you could do it. Manhattan, south of Central Park, right? That makes sense. And maybe the peninsula of San Francisco. Like, that's it. Most places, congestion pricing, not going to work. They talk about wanting to do congestion pricing in Southern California. Good luck. That's what they're going to learn real quick what a recall is. Because in New York, people can mode shift to the subway and to transit. You have probably some of the best transit in the country, maybe not in quality, but in terms of quantity. And you have a lot of important upgrades that MTA and New York need revenue. And so it kind of makes sense where you've got too much motor vehicle traffic and not enough revenue for subway to mode shift people from driving their cars to taking the transit that's already there, and then using the people who do still have to drive, moving the revenue from cars to transit. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The challenge they run into is, first of all, America is just not accustomed to congestion pricing, period. I think every city that attempted congestion pricing had a lot of pushback to begin with anyway. I remember London 20 years ago, that's where I first learned about it, was watching little snippets from the BBC about how it was going to just destroy London, and then it turned out it was okay. Nobody loves it, but it does its job of reducing congestion in the central city and generating revenue for transit. Okay, so we're going to do it. Manhattan's the place to do it. And they've tried several times, so it's not, I've been trying since the 70s to maybe do something like this. So this time they squeaked it through, they got federal approval. You say, well, why do they need federal approval? Well, some of the roads in Manhattan accept federal aid to help maintain them. That gives the federal government some say in what's going on. And there are strict rules that say if a road qualifies for federal aid, you can't toll it. There's no double dipping. The whole point of federal aid that comes from the gas tax is to keep roads free, to keep commerce as frictionless as possible. What was happening is all the traffic moving across the country goes through Wyoming, and Wyoming goes, well, look, we don't generate or receive any of this traffic, and we have all this yummy traffic just zooming through, and they're wearing out our roads. Well, we'll just put a toll booth on it, and then all the people in the other 49 states can pay us just simply for having the goods pass through Wyoming. And the idea of federal aid is going, no. The federal aid is to make up for that, because we, the 49 other states, don't want to pay a toll to have our trucks go through Wyoming. That's the theory. But in 1991, the Congress, about every 5 years, passes a law, a surface transportation law, that takes the money we pay in federal gas tax and authorizes it for to spend the money, and to do it in a fair and equitable way so that all taxpayers benefit from everybody paying in. And with the premise of trying to help interstate commerce. That's what the Constitution gives Congress power to be involved in. And one of the surface transportation laws in the 80s, they started to play with saying, hey, rather than the money just maintaining the federal highways, the U.S. highways and the interstate system, helping states pay to maintain the state roads there, why don't some of the money go to help mass transit, right? Because the more people who take mass transit, the better the highways will run. And then in 1991, they got creative and said, hey, if you want to use tolling, not necessarily as a way of making a ton of money, but as a way of trying to keep cars moving, like doing a toll lane on the freeway to keep traffic flowing, we'll allow it. We'll give a waiver to this ban of tolling on a federal highway, or a state highway that receives federal money, if it's being used to keep congestion moving. And you can do experiments, right? And that waiver's been around ever since 1991. And so that's what New York got passed, federal highway, under the previous administration, is they bullied that through and won. They had a whole bunch of lawsuits and they won. And they were able to get a waiver to be able to put a big congestion price that they call cordon tolling, because they draw a line around the city, and if you cross that line, you pay a toll going in with cameras and license plate readers and stuff. I can't remember, it's like $10 to enter the zone. And it's kind of interesting because the opponents of it really vary from it's not like left and right per se. I mean, you could maybe say oh, well, the Republicans are against it and the Democrats are for it. But then that's maybe true in Manhattan, maybe in New York State government a little bit. But like some of the biggest critics of congestion price tolling are New Jersey Democrats, Long Island Democrats, right? You know, there's a lot of people who live in Manhattan who don't own a car who are Republicans who love it, right? Because now their streets are not as busy. So it's not quite left versus right, but there's no doubt the previous administration's Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, was more okay with it. Sean Duffy's not. So Sean Duffy wrote a letter to the governor right away and said, and on my podcast I go into this in more detail, the May 1st episode, but he wrote a letter that said basically like, well, we're rescinding that because we don't like it, because you're using the money for the MTA and that's against the law. And also cordon pricing isn't mentioned in the law. Well, what happened was the Department of Justice lawyers and Department of Transportation lawyers have communication back and forth because this thing's going to end up in court. New York's going to sue to argue that the new Department of Transportation doesn't have a right to undo the thing that they just approved. And this communication from Department of Justice to Department of Transportation was supposed to get emailed to each other, and an attorney at, I think, Department of Justice accidentally uploaded it to the court. So I had a copy of it. It got spread all over the internet, and it was great. It basically said the risk of basically failing in litigation was quite high because the approach that Secretary Duffy was going at it really didn't have legal footing, because if you go back to, and the lawyers got so sassy. It was, there were lines in there like, you know, the notes and chit chat of congressional committees are not exactly stuff of excitement or something. Like basically saying congressmen are boring. But the lawyers had to go back to 1991 and say, okay, in the committee meetings when they passed this, what was their intention? And the intention was to do experiments, including cordon pricing. So for the secretary to say, well, the 1991 law was not intending cordon pricing, well, the lawyers from DOJ are saying, well, that's not going to fly. Like the New York lawyers are going to be able to just drive a truck right through that. And then the other is saying, well, the money is being used for the MTA. There's nothing in the 1991 law or any of the surface transportation bills since then that prohibit that. And so the lawyers write in this internal memo that, again, we all now have by accident, saying basically they can't find any legal footing to stand on to justify the secretary's position. Now, going forward, what they can do and what they're going to argue in court, unless they change strategies now because their memo got leaked, is that they could say that the priorities of Federal Highway Administration have changed. That just simply the goals that Federal Highway Administration are trying to achieve, this type of congestion pricing and congestion mitigation, just doesn't align with the goals of the new administration. That could have some legs. And what's funny is actually the attorneys for the state of New York in some of their briefing when they filed the lawsuit, suggested that. They said, you know, the secretary didn't even do this, you know. So it's kind of a coin toss what's going to happen, but I do know at the moment, while I wouldn't be doing if you're a supporter of it, I wouldn't be running around necessarily doing a happy dance that you're guaranteed to win. It's definitely was a shot in the arm for supporters to see that leaked memo. Myself, I have such mixed feelings about it. But I keep telling myself, and I mentioned before, is if there's going to be a place to do congestion pricing, that's the place to do it. And I think my hesitation and fear with congestion pricing isn't New York. If it's for Lower Manhattan and only for Lower Manhattan, I think it's great. If it ended up in the peninsula of San Francisco, that'd probably be great. My concern is it gets a bunch of planners at LA Metro excited to try it for LA County. And that is going to be an absolute disaster because you're not going to mode shift people in LA County. It's not built that way. You might be able to mode shift a few people in a few neighborhoods, but you're not going to, no, the county's too spread out. And so I don't know what they have in mind. I understand their motivation to say, wouldn't that be great to take all the freeways in LA County and toll all lanes? But it's the same thing I was talking about with the Oregon video. The problem you run into is, okay, you give up all your federal aid money in exchange for tolling this stuff. So, and then some of the money goes to administer the toll, and then you end up with something that, like, you know, people in LA County aren't going to say, oh, there's a toll on the freeway now, I'm priced out, I guess I won't drive. No, they're just going to jump onto the surface streets, and you're going to have issues of greater conflict with crosswalks on city streets. Like, the antithesis of the goal of building the freeway in the first place. The whole point of building the freeway is to get cars off the city streets, and if it diverts to the city streets, because by nature that many people are priced off of it. So, I don't know, like if there was a way to do it where you gave every LA County resident like a little punch card, you know, a virtual punch card, and said, okay, you get to use the freeway at rush hour 10 times this month. Now you can buy more times from somebody else who isn't going to drive it 10 times, and they can sell it. And so you basically create this thing where the toll revenue goes to pay other LA County residents who choose not to drive. That, I think, would actually work really well, because everybody's starting with this thing that's free, right? You get your 10 free times on the freeway, and then you can buy them and sell them depending on whether you're using the freeway or not. So those that have to use the freeway 60 times during rush hour a month can buy them from the people who use it 0 times. That's great. Never going to happen, because the second goal of congestion pricing is to generate revenue. That's actually the point. And so, you know what I mean? So it kind of gets the secondary goal of it being a cash king, you know, a revenue generator, ruins it. And so then at that point, it's a non-egalitarian mess, because now what you're doing is saying a bunch of wealthy people who live in well-off areas, they can use the freeway at Liberty anytime they want, but the working class people, now they can't use the freeway at all. So now their commute went from being an hour and a half to being 4 hours, because they still have to be at work at 7 a.m. to, you know, unlock the building, you know. And so I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Where we can meet in the middle is what we're already doing, which is you do a congestion pricing lane. So you have a hot lane, a high occupancy toll lane that some people can pay their way in and everybody else waits in the traffic. That's a good meet in the middle, in my opinion, because you still have both, but I don't know. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see. New York is such a fascinating test case. And like I say, I just talked about it now for almost as long as the podcast. But you want to check out the podcast, if you're a Patreon contributor at patreon.com/roadguyrob already, it's a perk for you. You just got to go get it if you want. So anyway, thanks, Ryan. Let's see. Original Clam says, hi, Rob. Love your channel. Thanks for doing it. You're welcome. It's fun. Let's see. There's so many great comments here, and I'm way behind. So JF with the super chat writes, my whole family is watching. Uh-oh. Are they gone? No, that's cool. We love watching your videos. My parents also say that I should also note that I am 11. Well, that's cool. Well, I'm glad your whole family's watching. I had a fan. He's in. His mom reached out to me, said that he was in, I think, 6th grade, and was doing a project for his school. And so he and his mom wanted to meet, and he was a very articulate young student who, I guess, for his class project, they had too much traffic coming to the elementary school, And so he had proposed several ideas to try to move people around more. And by the time we were all done, and so his mom and him and me walked around the school after hours and looked at the traffic and looked at the street. And when we looked at his different ideas, and he had some neat ones, like building a skywalk from the elementary school over to a big parking lot across the street. We talked about that and the expense of that. Or talked about, could they play with the schedule? Because that would be the cheapest thing, is just have students get out at different times. I suggested, rather than spending tens of millions of dollars on physical improvements to accommodate more cars, what about operating buses, yellow school buses, so most of the students take the school bus home instead? To me, that would seem like a better solution than trying to make it where every parent can pull up right to the curb. So that was kind of fun. But JF, I'm glad you're here and you're watching with your family, and it's good to see you. Okay, let's see. Oh, somebody write. Jimmy writes, UNLV's student body is 95% daily commuting. Yeah, it's hard. I always look to see, does Vegas have a big transit thing? Like I've always dreamed of the monorail going out to the airport. There are no plans to expand the monorail because it's gone bankrupt twice. It's kind of hard to. But the funny thing is, if they expanded it to the airport, if they went all out and spent like $1 billion, took the monorail, looped it around here to this other side, tied it in with the monorails over here, just made took it downtown, took it to the airport, where it actually would go places, I think the ridership would be off the charts, and it probably would pay for itself. It's kind of like in a no man's land of like, it's not cheap, right? It's kind of it's kind of an expensive thing, but it's not that they haven't yet spent enough money to make it useful. And so you're stuck in this no man's land where they have these huge bonds, $650 million in bonds, but the thing went from MGM to the convention center, and that was it. And I'm saying, well, maybe if they spent another $1 billion in bonds, which nobody would want to write them that loan after they've gone bankrupt twice, but if you could run the thing from MGM to the airport, we're almost there, another 4 miles, and then run another 4 miles the other way up to downtown. Now you got this usable system, airport to downtown with the whole strip in between. People buy a ticket for that just because they can avoid Uber at the airport. That said, the Uber floor at Harry Reid Airport is one of the most orderly things I've ever seen. Like, they've got a really slick system going for that. I just wish it would just be more fun if you could just monorail right out. That's all. Okay. Let's see. Somebody write something about. Oh no, just stopping by. Eric 9Z Attack writes, just stopping by to see you live. Love your videos. Been watching you for years. Keep up the good work. Well, I'm glad you stopped by. For a second, it looked like the just stopping looked like something like it said Starship Troopers, and I was like, what? Starship Troopers? But I misread it. So okay. Transit Trin writes, say you can thank the taxi cab industry for the monorail not going to the airport. It's been planned many times, but keeps getting killed by the cabs. What's funny is, haven't the cabs been killed already? Because I didn't see anybody taking a cab from the airport. I saw it was all Uber and Lyft now. So the cab industry kind of got wiped out anyway. But I think that's too bad. You think that's dumb? I've always wondered why there's a light rail train in Los Angeles on the 105 freeway. That's the freeway that runs right into the front door of LAX. But the train turns right before you get to LAX, about a mile before the airport. It turns and it ends. And I look at that and I go, you were so close back in 1989 or whenever they built that light rail. Why didn't they carry it all the way into the airport? And the LA Times has the answer. And it is the dumbest answer I have ever heard, that even the airport themselves, with a few years later, admitted was dumb. So they, in the late 80s, they saw how much revenue they take in from different sources to operate the airport. One of the biggest sources of revenue is landing fees. You want your landing fees cheap because then more flights come to your airport. I think Denver is one of the most expensive places to land because those landing fees are still paying off the original airport from 30 years ago. LA wanted to keep their landing fees cheap. So they're looking at other sources of revenue and they go, well, we make a lot of money off of parking. Parking at LAX is not cheap. And the problem is if we bring the train into the airport, a lot of people might take the train to the airport and then they won't park and we'll lose out on that parking money. So they told Metro, no thanks. There's no point in bringing the train in here. In fact, we don't want the train in here because it'll hurt our parking revenue. And fast forward to that was like 1990, fast forward to 1995, they go, uh-oh, we should have brought the train in. Well, by then it's too late. The project's done, right? So then they're stuck with this, LAX is a horseshoe. So all the cars come in and then they turn around and they come back out. And we have a horseshoe shape. Everybody gets stuck, because it doesn't matter what terminal you're going to, you have to drive through basically the whole thing. And if they'd had a train, and so I think they started working on the people mover to get people in and out, just to get them in and out of that horseshoe. I think clear back then, they started talking, and then it took off more in earnest about 10, 12 years ago, and then they've been working on it, and it was all set, ready to open this year, and now I think it's kicked into next year. But they have test trains, it's an automated thing, kind of like might be the Dallas people mover, except this one's outside of security. But what a mess, man. They had a chance to bring light rail in and they didn't do it. And it's the same thing here. The taxi cab unions not fought that. If that's true, and you could have had the monorail go to the airport, maybe the monorail never would have gone bankrupt. Certainly, maybe not in 2010 because you would have had something usable. Now I look at the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. All the transportation plans have to be tax constrained. In other words, you have to look into the future and see how much tax revenue you're anticipating collecting and make your plans fit within that anticipated revenue. And in their tax constrained view of the future, they're like, yeah, we want to run transit of some kind to the airport, but we don't know what, and it'll be probably too expensive. And so for the foreseeable 10, 20, 30 years, this is it. And so they do, but like I say, RTC do run a really good bus service, 24 hours a day. And so I do give them credit. They try to do the best they can with what they've got. And I think they, more than anybody, would love to have, a dozen or 24 miles of light rail to be operating around here. But it's up to the taxpayers, Clark County, to make that happen. And right now, I guess that hasn't been as big of a priority yet. So, but yeah. So, and speaking of rail, Adam with the super chat again writes, how's Brightline West coming along in Las Vegas? So the last I saw Brightline, it was supposed to land. I'm gonna pull up a map and show you, but it's supposed to land probably about 3 miles that way. Down at, if you're on a PC or if you're on a desktop computer, you want to open another tab, go to Google Maps, look at the south end of Las Vegas Boulevard. So we're right almost, go one more block down to Russell Road. That's where the airport starts. Go south of the airport, you have the 215 freeway that crosses I-15, and there's an off-ramp for Blue Diamond Road. At Blue Diamond Road, you can kind of see the outline of the old Blue Diamond Highway. It's a diagonal highway until it hits I-15, and then it levels off, and it turns into a street called Windmill. Well, it didn't used to do that. It used to keep going diagonally all the way to Las Vegas Boulevard. And because that was actually, in the old days, that was the old highway that took people in. In fact, let me see if I can pull it up here. And when Nevada DOT rebuilt that interchange with Blue Diamond Road. They got rid of the old diagonal road. It now connects with Windmill. That lot has been sitting vacant. That's supposed to be the big giant Brightline station. And when I saw it earlier today, there's nothing going on. I get very skeptical of the Brightline project. I think we get hopeful because the one in Florida did get built and it carries the same branding. But trying to, this mythical train from Vegas to LA that's going to be privately financed with, you know, half federal money, but privately financed, has been a dream that's right around the corner for 15 years. And so I get skeptical because I go, is this actually going to happen or not? And it never seems to quite happen. And so this time it was looking like it was really, really about to happen. And then, you know, it didn't, or it hasn't yet. And so I get scared that, you know, I think last time it was 2008 and we were all set. And then the Great Recession hit and that killed it. Okay, so look at the map. This is real high-tech stuff here. So if you zoom out here, so you see where we're standing, the little blue dot, right? And if you go south, you can see an Enterprise there. See that road that's coming in diagonally? It used to keep, oh, shoot, used to keep coming diagonally. Here we go. See how that highway used to keep going straight across? So that big property there on the south end of the strip, that's the Brightline station. That's going to be it right there. And I'm not seeing activity on it. So, you know, it's fun to hassle the California high-speed rail project for being over budget compared to, you know, it's goody two-shoes brother Brightline that's under budget and going to be privately financed and going to happen so much faster and really shows how much better the private sector is, right? But California high-speed rail has delivered on a lot of infrastructure. It's got a lot more to go, and it's way over budget, but it's happening. It's actually getting built. Brightline, I haven't seen anything getting built yet. I'm waiting on it. I want it to succeed. I'd love to ride it. I'd love to take you guys on it if I have good self-service. But the thing is, until it actually gets built, it's like, well, it's just an idea. It's not, you know, where I could take it to Fresno and show you billions and billions of dollars of stuff that's already been built for California high-speed rail, you know. So, like, if you're going to kill one project, the popular answer is you're going to kill California high-speed rail because that's a popular answer and that's a lot of money. But I'm skeptical because California high-speed rail, they've done things. This one they haven't. Now, hopefully what we'll find in another year or two is they'll do a lot of things, and then this thing will just shoot way ahead of the other project and it'll be a big success. I want to see it succeed. I'm just saying I haven't seen it yet. You know, so. Edvard Grieg, a while ago, writes, I just joined you, where are you? So we're going back to, I'll turn the camera around so you can see off in the distance. But 2 years ago, we were here along Tropicana Avenue, and they'll let me zoom in. That's kind of, the chat's open, hold on. If I close it. Okay, well anyway, it's scrolling the chat, but you can see way off in the distance, a freeway interchange there. We came here 2 years ago because the big flyover got chopped in half for a project they were doing. And then after that, we wandered over here on Tropicana Avenue. Ended up here at the corner of Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard. And see the big towering casino here? That used to be, there. That was the Tropicana, which it was, the street's named after. It got torn down because the Oakland A's are going to build their stadium there thanks to an enormous amount of taxpayer subsidy from Clark County that Alameda County, California couldn't compete with. And we took the Sky Bridge over, we walked in front of the Tropicana 2 years ago, and then down at the bottom, we ran into a guy named Kyle. I don't remember, it's been too long, but he was like from Wyoming or something and was a fan and stumbled across us, and so we chatted with him for a while. He was in town for some kind of conference, and then we wandered over to the monorail, and I was too chicken to take you guys on it 2 years ago, but I'm feeling antsy tonight, so maybe we'll at some point work our way over there. I'll put the tripod in my backpack and just carry the phone on, and maybe we go for a ride on the monorail. But to answer, that's where we're at right now. And then, of course, in the distance, you have the tourist scams. Never fall for people who walk around and say, "Hi, do you want a picture taken with us?" And I don't know, some kind of scam associated with that, but the answer is always say no, whether they're dressed like that or whether they're in an unauthorized Elmo or Oscar the Grouch costume. Always say no to the tourist scams.
Yep. That's why it was a perfect bachelor party.
I have to admit, in California, the street beggars, but you know what I mean, the people who ask for money are so good at their job that you can't help but give them money. And so I was washing my car, and the guy came up in Bakersfield, and he goes, "Oh man, it's a Honda Fit, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah," you know. And he starts talking about Hondas he's owned, and I'm talking about Hondas I've owned. And then he just perfectly seamlessly transitions about like, "Yeah, man, I'm just trying to get some money for an Uber so I can get back down to LA. Just wondering if you had any cash on you." And I'm like, I didn't even see it coming. The guy was so outgoing and so good. It's like, all right, sure, here's $10. I'm cheap. I always tell people no. I'm Ebenezer Scrooge, you know. But then I tell you, some of these people trying to hit you up for money, especially in California, it's such a competitive market. The good ones are really good, and you can't help but give them money with a smile on your face because it's so pleasant to talk to. You know, as opposed to other big cities, so you run into somebody who's asking for money and you're kind of scared. You're almost giving them money to like, okay, you're scaring me. Here, just go away. You know, the ones in California are like, "Yeah, man, I'll help you out, buddy." You know. So anyway, that's where we're at here. So, all right, let's see what else we got going on. Zoran writes, really, they might be the top reason as well that the Las Vegas airport doesn't have a monorail. More money from parking and rental cars. Yeah, I just, the LA one really surprised me because I always thought parking was kind of a loser because they're just trying to pay the bonds off on the garage. And so evidently those garages must stay pretty occupied at LAX where they paid them off and they were actually a generator. Because, yeah, I was surprised. Let's see. Patrick writes, what explains your perfectly straight teeth, dentures? Orthodontics or genetics? Well, it's definitely not genetics. So the big teeth, I've got big teeth from genetics. That's, you can see in my family, there's a lot of big teeth. But the straight is, I had the privilege of having an uncle. It's actually kind of a sad story. Trigger warning. I had an uncle who was really good at orthodontic work. I mean, just always trying to be top-notch at what he did, and was always going to conferences. And he wanted to live in a place that was beautiful but cheap. And so he moved to Wyoming. You know, not Yellowstone. He was outside of Yellowstone quite a ways, where it was like right before Wyoming got really ugly. It was just kind of ugly. It was, you know, and then what he would do, since no town in Wyoming can support an orthodontic practice really entirely on its own, is he had a pilot's license, so he loved to fly, and he would have little practices all over the state, and he'd fly around. And so he was really nice, and my parents had a little bit of dental coverage for orthodontic coverage, and he said, you know what, I'll take whatever the insurance will give, you know, your family, straighten your teeth, it'll be great. So he did a top-notch job, because I used to have like, these teeth are like way up like Frankenstein fangs. I mean, it's horrible, you know. You know, Lisa Simpson from the Simpsons episode where it's Lisa needs braces, you know. And so he went all out and just did an amazing job. And unfortunately, in 2011, he flew into some bad weather and crashed outside of Casper, Wyoming. You can actually look up the crash report. His tail number was N357, if you ever are into that kind of thing. But yeah, it was fog to ground. He missed the approach at Casper, flew into bad weather, and then stopped talking to the radio, and I think he just wasn't watching his altimeter. Thankfully, he was alone. Nobody else was in with him, but it's a really sad story. But on the flip side, I was privileged to know him, and he was really good at his job. Let's see if I can find... the joke's always funnier if you can pull it off fast. Yeah, so it's... There you go. Put me before braces. I love The Simpsons. All right, where are we? We would start walking here. I just grab a question so we can talk about it while we go here. All right, B writes, let's go, Rob. Let's go do the monorail. All right. And then, so John writes, are you from Vegas? No, I'm not. I have a lot of California family. I live in California now, but I grew up in Utah. And then Ann Hansen writes, a good deal of Wyoming is flat. Yeah, Wyoming's, I got mixed feelings about it. In fact, the video coming out later this month will be my first from Wyoming. And it's an interesting place because so much of the state is so ugly that you just assume, oh, well, the reason why nobody lives in Wyoming is because the state's so ugly. Okay. But then you start, like I spent time in Green River, Wyoming for 3 or 4 days filming, and this town that from the freeway looks kind of ugly, and you start hanging out there for days and days, and you start going, you know, this is, oh, sweet, there's a trash can right here. My water bottle. But you're not recycling. I know, but at least I'm getting it in the trash can. So yeah, the challenge with Wyoming is, I think, because from I-80 it looks really ugly, but once you're there and you start spending a few days there, its own natural beauty starts to shine through, and you go like, oh, if a lot of rich people from California spent more than 3 or 4 days here, I think a lot more people would move here. You know, they just don't know. They just assume the whole, you know, other than Jackson Hole and Yellowstone, they just assume the rest of the state's ugly. And it's true the farther east you get, but the middle part, like I say, Green River, Rock Springs, was prettier the longer I was there. I wonder if we'll see the signs that say stopping is not allowed. Because I know Formula One, as I mentioned earlier, supposedly stopping on the bridge is now a misdemeanor, although that doesn't seem to be stopping people from stopping. But this is one of the few places where a skywalk actually works pretty well. You know, a lot of the urban planning types rail on skywalks. They say it kills the city, and it's true. If you want a European-style walkable place, this ain't the way to do it. But this isn't trying to be a European walkable place. It's trying to be Las Vegas. It's its own weird animal. And I don't know, there's something, I don't know, about the public elevators and the outdoor escalators and then crossing, you know, what is that, a 8, 9, 10, 11 lane street? You count the turn lane. You know, there's just something about that's so uniquely Nevada. It's also weird to be here at a time when they're not busy, you know. So much of the year, this place is just so packed. This is the time to be here. It's 70 degrees and there's nobody here, you know. All right, let's find something else to talk about. Let's see. Oh, Spruce Oaks with a super chat writes, I enjoy your content, Rob. Keep up the good work. Wish it were more frequent. I understand. Plug your Patreon. Yes, patreon.com/roadguy.rob. That's probably 2/3 of my revenue. I'm now to the point, thanks to your help. Oh, you can see the Tropicana in the distance there, or the rubble pile being crushed into rocks. But thanks to your help, like I say, 2/3 of my revenue consistently is Patreon. And you can go look at the number and do the math and figure out what my budget is that I'm trying to stretch to, you know, both live and travel and film these videos. But I describe it as being a Utah school teacher minus the benefits, or working for a small town newspaper back when those were a thing. But that's a big improvement over a few years ago where it was something I had to apologize to my friends and family for. They go, well, why don't you go get a job? I feel bad that you're out of work. I go, well, but I think this is going to turn into my work. And they go, come on, dude, you're 36, 37 years old. You can do better than that. And I'm like, yeah, but this might be a thing, you know. And now it's becoming a thing where now I don't have to apologize for it. They go like, okay, well, you're just poor. But you have a job. You have a very real job. You're just poor. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm poor. So, but thanks to you, like I say, I never stopped living like a college student. So I just stretched the money, and we've been able to do some neat things. I'm excited to try to figure out this year what the big film trip will be, to try to pick up 3 or 4 videos for later this year. I'm almost done with all the footage I've shot. So yeah, patreon.com/roadguyrob. That's Spruce Oaks. Thank you for your super chat. The live streams I probably could do a bit more often. Now I'm not sure, the entrance to the monorail's up there, but the bridge is closed. So I'm not sure, maybe we can enter from down here. I'll have to put the tripod away here pretty soon so it doesn't draw so much attention to itself. But I've been thinking the live streams, it would be fun to do those almost once a month if I could, but I definitely try to get it whenever I... Okay, so we're entering their property, so I'm gonna put a bunch of equipment away because I don't want to make a whole scene here. So, but the phone is still working. But if I put the tripod away, then it looks less like I'm doing a whole like production, you know. Let's see what it takes to fold all this up. Let's see. Rob is dressed to help with trash. You know, yeah, it's loud. DJ Kevinator writes, have you visited the musical roads in California? I have. They're flat. I think there's a YouTube video about it that Hyundai or Honda or whoever cut that road, and then they put it too close to the city line, and so the residents were complaining because all night long they just did hear, you know, William Tell, except it was flat, every single note, and speeding up doesn't unflatten it. It's like the ratio of the notes to one another are just off. Something about they calculated the distance of the space between the notes, but they didn't properly calculate the groove itself. So you add the groove to the space in between, and now all the notes are the musical math doesn't add up anymore. So so they realized they had a problem. There are 2 problems. They had to fix that problem, and then they wanted to move it farther away from town. It's out near Palmdale, California, way up north, kind of up toward Edwards Air Force Base. And so when they recut it on the new street, they they made the same mistake again. So it's also flat. And so I always get a kick out of it. I don't get out there much, but you know, maybe every couple years I'll happen to be up that way and I'll drive on it. And I'll just laugh because you start driving down the street expecting to hear the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you get this it's just, I'm not musically trained at all, but I just, even to a common person, it just sounds wrong. You know, something really wrong with this this musical road, but almost done. I'm just putting the battery away. I'm putting the mic, or the, not mic, the clipboard away. So now I'm just a dude with a backpack going on the monorail with 218 of my friends. Oh, shit.